Today, I'll show you how to create this Vox-style newspaper article animation in After Effects. First, we'll create a newspaper, then we'll make textures that will give it a more grungy look, and lastly, we'll animate it. The project files from this and all my other templates and tutorials are available on my Patreon page at patreon.com/DenisZhelin. At first, we have to find the article to animate. I found this one on New York Times website. Take a screenshot, go to Photoshop or any other image editing software, paste it and save it. Also, we need a newspaper texture for the article. I found this texture on the Texture Labs website. Its name is Paper 366XL, meaning extra large. Drop the texture into Photoshop and create the selection with the Magic Wand tool. Create the mask, select the brush, set the colors to default by hitting D, and X to switch between white and black color. The black color will remove the background. That's what we need. Set the brush hardness to something like 90% and remove everything that sticks out of the paper. We can also smooth out the edges a bit. And save this image as a PNG with transparent background. Go to After Effects. Create a 4K composition, 24 FPS, 8 seconds long. In After Effects, first we'll create the background. Go to Layer, New, Solid, name it Background or BG, and set the color to 313131. Hit OK. Then import the article and drop it on a timeline. Make the layer 3D and turn the motion blur on. Now let's make the article black and white and blur it a bit. We are blurring the article to remove the sharp edges, because you will not find a printed newspaper that has the edges that are that sharp. Go to the Effects and Presets panel and type in Tint. Drop it on a layer and go back to the Effects and Presets panel. Type in Fastbox Blur. Drop it on the layer and set the blur radius and iterations to 1. Here's how the article looks without the blur and with it. Switch the blending mode to multiply. Now it looks weird, but when we drop it on the paper background, it will look way better. Import the paper texture and put it below the article. Make this layer 3D and turn the motion blur on. Scale it down and place it in a way that it looks good with your article. Then we'll desaturate the paper and make it a bit brighter. Go to the Effects and Presets panel and type in Tint, drop it on a layer, and type in Curves and drop it on the layer too. And lift the curves so that the line looks like this. This will make the highlights of our paper way brighter. Let's scale up the article and the paper background so they look more realistic. Like this. Duplicate the paper texture and put this duplicate underneath the original paper texture. Then pull it down in the preview window. This way we'll extend the newspaper's background and we will cover the whole article. We cannot see it right now, but we will see it during the outro animation. Make sure the top paper texture and the bottom paper texture intersect by accordingly 1/4 of their size. Then select the paper texture that's on top and go to the rectangle tool. Double-click on it so it will create a mask the size of the newspaper texture. Pull the bottom portion of the mask up a bit so we can create a nice and smooth transition between the two textures. Go to Mask Feather by hitting F and set the feather to something like 300 pixels. Now it's time to create the highlights. Go to the rectangle tool and set its color to FFEA00. And then drag it over the preview window to create a highlight. It will create a shape layer. Select the shape layer and hit A to open the anchor point controls. Now we have to place the anchor point in the middle left side of the rectangle. We are doing this so that later we can create an animation that starts on the left and ends on the right. If you want your animation go from right to left, you have to do the opposite. Place the anchor point on the right side of the rectangle. Once you've finished with setting up the anchor point, drag the highlight back to its original place. Now we'll animate the layer. Select the shape layer 1, hit S to open scale controls, and unlink the scale width from scale height. We want to animate the width only. Go to the 0-second time mark on the timeline, set scale to 0 and create a keyframe. Then go to 1-second time mark and set the scale to 100. To make the animation more smooth, right-click on the last keyframe, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease In. Turn on the motion blur and rename the layer to Highlight. Then let's make the animation even more smooth by going to the speed graph by clicking this button. Select the scale control and drag this right handle to the left. Now the animation starts really fast and it ends up smooth. It's cool that we have this highlight animation, but we want to see the text that this highlight is highlighting. So go to the blending mode and set it to multiply. Now let's make the highlight more rough, like it was drawn with the highlighter. Go to the Effects and Presets panel and type in Roughen Edges. Drop it onto the highlight layer and set the border to 5. Set the edge sharpness to 0.21. Now let's blur the edges a bit so they are bleeding as well as the text. It's like the highlighter is being soaked into the paper and it's spreading into the texture. Go to the Effects and Presets panel and type in Fastbox Blur. Drop the effect onto the highlight layer and set the blur radius to 2 and iterations to 1. Now we have a newspaper with the highlight. Let's duplicate the main highlight and place it somewhere here to highlight the additional information. This highlight is way too big for this text. Hit S to open the scale controls and go to the last keyframe. Set the X scale to 73 and the Y scale to 58. This way we'll reduce the width of the highlight and its height. Then go to the first keyframe and set the Y scale to 58. Duplicate the highlight layer once again and place it over the remaining text. Repeat the same procedure with the scale keyframes, but this time set the X scale of the last keyframe to 29. Once you've done with the scale keyframes, place all the highlight layers into steps like this. This way the main highlight is gonna be animated first, then we'll go the second highlight and later the third one. Now it's time to create two texture animations. The first one will be the animation of the dirt, and the second one will be grain. These two texture animations will give our article a more grungy look. We are creating these two textures because they are very processing heavy, and if you implement them directly into the article animation, it's gonna be very tough for your computer to render them, and for mine too. If we use the rendered video instead, it's gonna be way easier for your computer to process it. My Patreon subscribers already have the access to these textures and the project file. To create a dirt texture animation, first we have to go to Photoshop. Create a new file. 3840 by 2160, that's 4K. Hit OK and drop any dirt texture you can find. I have this one from Texture Labs. Increase its size to cover the whole canvas area and hit enter to apply the transformation. Now we have to create 15 different textures out of this one and save them in PNG to maintain the quality. Then we'll create a video out of them in After Effects and apply it to our article animation. So select the Clone Stamp tool, create a new layer, make the brush size somewhere around 100 pixels and hardness from 0 to 40%. And begin drawing on a new layer. If you cannot draw, like in my case, it just does nothing to the image, go to Sample and select Current and Below. This way the Clone Stamp tool will sample the layer that you're on currently and all the layers below it. Sample the areas that you want to copy by holding Alt and clicking on them, then release the Alt button and click on the image where you want to paste the sampled area. Sample different areas from different places so it doesn't look similar. In total, we'll create 15 of these images and they have to be different. So our task right now is to create an image that is gonna be different from the previous image. Once you're happy with this image, save it and go on to the next one. You can duplicate layers, rotate them, apply masks, remove the parts that you don't need with the eraser tool, and so on. Also, you can build a stack of quite a few layers and mix them together in different proportions. This will give you an opportunity to create more images more easily. Once you have saved 15 images, go to After Effects and create a new composition. The resolution is 4K, frame rate anything from 12 to 24 FPS. Name the composition Film Dust Animation, set the length to 3 seconds and hit OK. We don't need a long composition because we will loop it later and it will work just fine. Once you've created a composition, go to the project panel, right-click, import file, and import all the dust textures. Make sure you're not importing them as a sequence. We need separate image files so we can fix everything that we have made wrong in Photoshop. From my experience, I cannot create a perfect sequence directly in Photoshop. There are gonna be some flaws anyway, and we'll fix them now in After Effects. Create a folder for these textures, name it Textures, and drop the textures into the folder. It's gonna be easier to work with them. Select all the textures and drop them on the timeline. While the textures are selected, go to 0 seconds on a timeline, hold Alt and press the right square bracket. This will create the layers that are 1 frame long. After that, we need to arrange them into a sequence. To do this, go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers, and hit OK. It has automatically created a sequence, and as I told you before, it's not perfect. There are parts that are repeating themselves. Now we will fix it by rotating, flipping, and adding more images. Scrub through with your playhead and look for the parts that are repeating. If they are repeating, you can flip the image, add mask, duplicate the image. I can see that we have a problem here too. So rotate it 90 degrees, place it somewhere here on the left, duplicate it and put the duplicate right here. Now you can see that it's not repeating that often. Then look for another texture that looks that it doesn't belong here. Just like this one, it's way too bright on the edges. Hence, I rotate it, duplicate it and place it here. But as you can see, we have a very sharp edge that goes straight through the center of the image. So let's add the mask and set the feather to 200 and scale it up a bit. So the texture animation is ready. Now we have to get at least 2 seconds of footage. This means that we have to select all the layers, duplicate them, place them above and shift them here. Then repeat this action. Duplicate, place them up here and move the layers. Delete the layers that are above 2 seconds long. This number of layers is enough to hit the 2-second mark. Once you're happy with your dust animation, you can render the video that we will use a little bit later with our article. Then goes the grain. Create a 4K composition, 24 FPS and 3 seconds long. Create a new solid and make it neutral gray, meaning hue and saturation have to be 0, but brightness 50%. This way, we will be able to apply it through the overlay mode. And it will not change neither the colors nor the brightness of our article. To add the grain effect, go to the Effects and Presets panel and type in grain. Drop the Add Grain effect onto the layer. Select the Eastman Color -100T preset, set intensity to 2, go to Color Settings and set it to monochromatic. In the Viewing mode, select Final Output. The grain is almost ready. We have the grain, but it has this purple color, and we don't need it. To fix this, go to Effects and Presets panel and type in Tint and apply the tint effect to the layer. Okay, I found that this grain is way too fine for our very rough and coarse article style. So I will reduce the resolution of this composition to 1920 by 1080. This is Full HD. This way the grain will be bigger and coarser. That's exactly what we need. Well, it looks like this. Render this into a video with a high bitrate, about 50 megabits per second in H.264. Or you can render it in Apple ProRes to maintain the quality. Let's go back to the article. Now we'll make a newspaper, slightly more grungy. To do this, drop in the Texture Lab 185 XL onto the timeline. Set its blending mode to overlay and scale it down so that it fits the screen. Then drop in the film dust animation, but as you can see it's way too short, and we need to create more loops so that we can extend this video. To do so, go to the project panel and right-click on the film dust animation. Go to the Interpret Footage, Main, and set the number of loops to 100. Then extend the film dust animation on your timeline. Set the blending mode to overlay and the opacity to 24 because it's way too intense. Finally, let's import the grain and drop it on the very top of the timeline. Hit Ctrl-Alt-Shift-H or Command-Option-Shift-H to fit the screen width and set the mode to overlay. If you need to, you can readjust the position and scale of the article and the newspaper with the highlights, like I'm doing here. It looks a bit better now. The article is ready, but it's not animated yet. To animate it, we need a camera. Go to Layer New Camera and leave everything by default. Then create a null object to control the camera. Layer New Null Object. And rename the null object to Camera Controls. Make the null object a 3D layer and parent the camera to it. Now we can control the camera with the help of a null object. I think our intro camera animation will end up at something around 1 second. So let's move the highlight back in time a bit so we have more room for the camera animation. Go to the 1 second and 2 frames on the timeline, open the position of cam controls layer and create a keyframe. Then go to 0 seconds and move the camera up so that the article goes down. It will automatically create a keyframe. Now we have an animation, but it looks way too rough. We need to smooth it out. To make the animation smoother, go to the last keyframe, right-click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease In. This will start the camera animation really fast, but it will end up really slowly. To make it slow down even smoother, select the last keyframe, then go to Speed Graph Editor and pull the right handle to the left, so that we have this nice curve. But still, this animation is not smooth enough. We can make it even more smooth. Select the pen tool and put a point somewhere here on the graph, right in the middle of the animation. And pull the right keyframe more to the right. This way we are extending the animation even more by making it slow down even longer in time. This will make the animation even more smooth. Now let's make the outro animation. Go to the 8th second and create a keyframe. Now you might have noticed something interesting. Once we have created this last keyframe, the animation began to move in between the last keyframe and the previous keyframe, despite they have the same position. This is happening because After Effects has automatically applied the Bezier transition to these two keyframes. Hence, it tries to somehow make the transition smooth instead of keeping it in a linear manner. We will fix it right now. Select all the keyframes, right-click on any of the keyframes, keyframe interpolation, and set the spatial interpolation to linear. We need to change the spatial interpolation only. We do not touch the temporal interpolation. Temporal interpolation changes keyframes in time, whereas the spatial interpolation changes them in space. We want animation in space to be linear, but we want the temporal interpolation to go in a Bezier manner, so meaning with all these curves and not as linear. And we have already made a few curves in the beginning of the animation. Now we don't have this weird movement. It's time to finish the animation. Go to the very end of a timeline and pull the camera down. It means that the article will go up. Also, if you see that your newspaper looks weird at the bottom, just like mine right here, you can fix it by dragging the newspaper texture down a bit. And then pull the camera all the way down, so that the newspaper disappears. And as you might have noticed, the grain ends before the timeline ends. We have to fix this by going to Project Panel, right-click on the grain, Interpret Footage, Main, and set the number of loops to the one that fits you best. I will set it to 100 this time. And then extend the grain layer to the end of the timeline. Okay, now let's tinker with the outro animation for the camera movement. Select this keyframe and go to the speed graph view. We want to smooth out the outro animation here, but unlike the intro animation that ends up really smooth, the outro animation has to be a little bit more fast and rough. It shouldn't start really smooth because it's gonna look boring. So roughly we'll make it look something like this, or maybe even faster. And let's move the highlight layers a little bit back in time, so so that we have more room for the camera animation. Okay, so the intro and the outro animations look quite good. We can tinker with them later, but for now it's good. Now let's create the zoom in and zoom out animations. To do this, duplicate the cam controls layer, delete all the keyframes from this layer, and parent the original cam controls layer to this layer. This way, we'll be able to add new animation without interfering with the old ones. It's a very cool way to add the animations layer by layer, without ruining everything that you've made before. Go to the 18th frame on the timeline and set a keyframe. Then go to 1 second and 23 frames on the timeline and set one more keyframe. Go to the first keyframe and zoom out a bit, like this. This way, the article goes up at first and then it zooms in so that we can see the most important part. Move the keyframes somewhere here, it looks better here. The main idea in animating the camera like this is that the animations should not stop. They should go like a waterfall, one by one, without leaving an empty space in between them. Then right-click on the first keyframe, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease Out. Go to the last keyframe, right-click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease In. This way we'll create the smooth animation. Go to the speed graph and drag the handles so that they look like this. This will make the animation that starts slowly, then goes really fast, and then ends slowly too. With this speed and smoothness, I can see that these keyframes should belong somewhere here, approximately. It's just a game of placing the keyframes in the spots they look really good. You just place the keyframe in one spot, then play back your animation. If it looks cool, then that's the perfect spot. If it looks not as cool, try to move them to the right or to the left, or decrease the space in between the keyframes, or maybe increase it, who knows. The whole animation should give you the overall feeling that it's smooth. I can see that the middle portion of the zoom in animation is way too fast, so let's go to the speed graph editor and make it not as fast. This is how it looks right now. Well, here I can see that the zoom in animation is stretched in time a lot. Let's make the zoom in animation faster by decreasing the space in between the keyframes. It looks not too bad, but as you can see, after the zoom in animation, the newspaper continues to go up. And we don't want it to happen. We want the zoom in animation to be the last animation that's happening to this newspaper. So let's open the cam controls layer. Now let's try to pull these keyframes further apart. And in the graph editor, pull the handles towards each other so that the animation will start really slowly and will end really slowly, but it will be very fast in the middle. Let's move this top left keyframe to the right a bit. Also, let's pull the last keyframe to the right a bit. This way, we will make the top to bottom camera animation end earlier than the zoom in camera animation. And it looks way better. Okay, the camera animation looks good, but what I have noticed is that the highlight 2 and highlight 3 animations are way too fast. Select the layers, hit U to reveal all the keyframes and pull the keyframes to the right. This way we'll make the animation slower. And also let's pull the highlight 3 layer a bit to the right too, so that the animation of the highlight 3 starts when the animation of highlight 2 ends. Now let's go back to zoom in animation. The main idea of a zoom in animation is that the camera keeps on zooming into the newspaper. So we have to zoom in all the time. To create such animation, go to 7 seconds and 12 frames and create a keyframe. Zoom in a camera a bit into the newspaper. Like this. This way the camera will keep on zooming into the newspaper even after the main zoom in animation is over. To create a zoom out animation, go to 8 seconds and 2 frames and create one more keyframe. For this keyframe, copy the position of the keyframe that was very first in this animation. By applying this position to the very last keyframe, we will make a zoom out animation and put the paper into its place where it was before all the zoom in animations happened. To make the animation smoother, select the keyframe, go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease Out. Then go to the last keyframe, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease In. To make sure we don't have any weird additional camera animation with the zoom in, we will make the same that we made with the first camera animation. Select all the keyframes, right-click on any of the keyframes, Keyframe Interpolation, and set the spatial interpolation to linear. Hit OK. This way we'll make sure that the camera works the way we have created it, meaning it will just straightly zoom in and zoom out without any funky stuff. Let's pull these keyframes a little bit more apart and go to the speed graph editor. Make the in animation a little bit more smooth and make sure that there is no abrupt steps in between the lines on the keyframes. And by this, I mean that the lines should connect to each other and not hang somewhere in the air or somewhere down below. Okay, this animation looks a little bit weak. It needs more energy, more punch to it. To do so, we'll put the keyframes closer together so that the animation will go faster. Okay, the top-bottom camera animation is way too fast. Let's increase the space in between the keyframes and go to the speed graph editor and make the intro a little bit smoother. Then go to the speed graph editor of Cam Controls 2, select the position, and fix this broken line in the beginning of the animation. That's exactly what I was talking about. The first animation stops abruptly, and then the second animation continues with different speed and different acceleration, and it will make the animation look jerky. And we don't want it, we want the animation to look smooth. So lift it up a little bit so that the two lines connect. As for the outer animation, make the beginning of this animation a little bit smoother. Then go to the beginning and fix this floating keyframe, if you have one, of course, because, well, I have. Just pull it back down and smooth out the line a bit, and make it smooth up here too. If you see such steps in your animation, this means that your animation will be very rough. It will have very rough changes in speed and acceleration, and it will not look smooth at all. That's why we'll have to smooth everything out. And this is how the animation looks in the end. To get a true Vox experience, render this article in 8 FPS and without the motion blur. Thanks for watching! Like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you want to learn next. And check out my Patreon for awesome motion graphics.